Hey gang, what's up? Welcome back here to another edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate each and every one of you guys watching the video and spending some time with me today. Always very grateful for that. And guys, today I'm going to give you guys some tips and advice if you decide if you want to fish as a co-angler in 2024, how you can maximize your success, because I've had a chance to fish with over 1,000 different co-anglers throughout the course of my fishing career, fishing tournaments over 40 years. And I fished with 5 different co-anglers that have won the tournament out of the back of my boat. And I have seen it all, guys. I've seen what the most successful co-anglers do and how they approach it. And I've seen the guys that struggle and don't catch any fish. So I'm going to give you guys some do's and don'ts as far as being a co-angler out there, how it's going to really help you guys. And this is going to be some golden nuggets if you want to fish as a co-angler in 2024. One of the things about it, guys, is the co-angler events have not always been around. We didn't start the co-angler events up until I think 1989 was the first year that co-anglers came on the scene. Before that, it was just boater on boater, or boater and co-boater, but everybody, there was none of this like you stay in the back of the boat all day long like a co-angler does today and the pro fishes up front. So it's been around for a little over 30 years now, and that's in that capacity. And like I said, I've seen every bit of it. I've seen every possible scenario, every personality that you can possibly imagine as far as people out there. And I pay close attention. I pay close attention to how the guys that catch fish behind me and how the guys that struggle behind me fish. So that's what I want to share with you guys today. So anyway, when the advice I want to give you guys fishing for 2024 is going to be a pretty detailed little tutorial here. And I want to break it up into 2 different aspects. Number one is if you draw a live scoper, spotlighter that I prefer calling them, or if you draw somebody that's actually, real bass fishing. There's 2 different genres there that are completely different as far as your approach. So I want to talk a little bit about the spotlighters. If you do draw a spotlighter, what to do versus, and then we'll get into the real type of fishing here in a second. If you draw somebody that's live scoping or spotlighting or, forward facing sonar or whatever, you want to call it, I'll make no bones about it, guys, you're screwed. You are screwed. If some dude tells you I'm scoping them out here, just be prepared for a suck day on the water, because it's going to be miserable for you out there. Yeah, you might be like a squirrel finding an acorn once in a while and throw just randomly out there in open water and catch one. But more than likely, you're going to come in at the end of the day complaining and griping about you drew your live scoper. I hear it over and over and over again. The best thing you can do is, if you're drawing somebody that's a live scoper out there, is make sure you complain to the tournament director that, live scope has no business in tournaments, and just get rid of it. Number one, that's going to be the best thing you can do. But if you're actually forced to fish in a situation, where you're with a live scoper, probably the best bet that you're going to have out there is just fan casting around with a small swim bait. Little swim bait is going to catch fish in a wide range of conditions. You can fish it suspended. You can let it go to the bottom. You can cover different water depths, water columns with it out there. That's probably your highest percentage, lure to fish out there. But ultimately, you're in for a nightmare of a day. It's going to be terrible if you draw a spotlighter, which you probably will, because that's all anyone ever does anymore for the most part. Now, if you draw somebody that's actually bass fishing, this is where I've got some really good info for you as far as you can help out. Thing that you have to remember is, if you draw somebody that's just bass fishing normally and they're fishing any type of shoreline or bank structure, which they probably will be, the best thing that you can do right off the bat, we get into it, is pretend like there's a line down the middle of the boat and never cast past that line up to the front of the boat. Now, aside from the fact that, it's just common courtesy not to rush your pro or, try to fish up front where your pro's fishing, it's all about angle. And you have got to be able to get the right angle. And the only angle that you're going to catch any fish off of consistently, if you've got somebody that's, fishing a shoreline, is behind you. Now, my biggest advice that I can give you, and every single one, not 1 or 2 of them, guys, every single one of the pros that I have fished with that have won the tournament out of my boat, and there's been 5 of them, have casted right behind the boat or at a 45-degree angle, to the bank behind me. So in other words, what they're going to do is if I look back at my co-angler, all I would see is their back, because they're fishing the water that I had just fished the same way I'm fishing it, but from a different angle. They're getting the same angle that I got approaching it from a different angle out there, and that's why they catch fish out there. If you're one of those dudes that tries to cast 20 foot up in front of the boat, or just make a little 20-foot cast just so you can get up in front of the boat, you're just killing yourself. You're not going to catch crap doing that. Focus on fishing behind the boat. And I promise you guys, if you just focus on that water back there, you're going to come out with a good tournament in here in doing that. Now, the technique, guys, it ranges from a lot of different variables out there. And what I'll do, guys, is I'll put in my link in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description, I'll put all of the lures in there that my co-anglers have done the best in over the years. If you guys want to pick up some of those on that link, that's probably the best advice I can give you with that. But the lures and the techniques that you want to fish behind the boat like that totally depend upon a lot of different, variables. It depends on the time of the year, it depends on the type of cover that you're fishing, it depends on the water clarity, depends on all that. The number one bait for you guys that's going to be most effective out the back of the boat is dragging a football head jig behind the boat. I have seen so many fish caught out of the back of my boat by guys dragging, a football head jig, that I can't even tell you how many. One of the best co-anglers in the history of the sport, Frank Divis, who passed away last year, Frank practiced with me a lot. That's all he did was drag a football head jig out of the back of the boat. I don't care where he was, that's what he did. And he won a bunch of tournaments. He was one of the all-time leading money winners. And Frank was one of those guys, every time I look back there, I just saw his back. I never saw him fishing up front. Remember that, guys. That's a big deal. Take like a 1/2-ounce football head jig, just throw it out there behind the boat and just drag it behind the boat. And one of the things that will help you out is if you tell your pro, say, look, I'm not going to fish in front. I'm going to throw behind the boat all day long. All I ask is that if I get hung up, you go get my lure. 99% of the guys will do that, just because it takes the pressure off of knowing that they don't have to deal with some dude fishing up in front of the boat. So football head jig's number one. Number two with that is going to be a crankbait. Now the type of crankbait is going to be totally dependent upon, again, the water temperature, water clarity, all that type of stuff. But normally, most of the crankbaits that I've seen my co-anglers do well with are some type of a smaller, medium running crankbait, like a smaller square bill crankbait, maybe something that runs down 5-6 feet. I see a lot of fish being caught on that. Another bait that I see a lot of guys catching fish on is dragging a shaky head. They'll take just like a shaky head with 1/8-ounce shaky head with a trick worm, do the same thing as with the football head jig. A lot of it depends on the pace that your pro's fishing. If your pro's fishing really slow, then you can slow down and fish really slow, but you sort of have to adapt to the pace that your that your pro is fishing. Another bait that I have seen a bunch of fish caught on, which what would not be my guess, is a spinnerbait, guys. I see a lot of fish out of the back of the boat getting caught on spinnerbait behind the back of the boat. And I think a lot of it is you're generating a reaction strike. And another thing with that is I really think there's something to the fact that when you're working down a bank, and if a pro is fishing that bank before you, that fish is very aware of your presence. It's seen your pro's bait, it's heard the trolling motor, and a lot of times a bait like a crankbait or a spinnerbait, something like that, will generate a reaction strike. Another bait that I've seen a bunch of fish caught on is a chatterbait. Same deal, casting out behind the boat, 45-degree angle behind the boat. That's produced a lot of fish too. Now, that's in a bank situation. A lot of times you may be out in open water with somebody that's not live scoping. Say if you're fishing like a big grass bed out in Texas, or a grass bed on some of the TVA lakes, or grass down in Florida where somebody's not live scoping, then it opens up pretty much the same techniques that your pro is fishing. And guys, the same thing applies there. Here's another one of the biggest mistakes that I see co-anglers make, is I can't tell you how many times I've been out in the middle of a big grass flat, like Lake Tahoe in Florida, Sam Rayburn Lake in Texas, whatever. I'm in the middle of a grass flat and there's grass all the way around me, and I'm casting up in front of the boat like this, and I'll have a co-angler that has to cast up in front with me like that when they've got 180 degrees of water behind the boat that's untapped. Same thing applies, guys, if you're in open water. Turn around, put your back to your partner and start fishing behind the boat out there, pretty much with the same baits that he's fishing. Lipless crankbaits, traditional crankbaits, jerk baits, whatever. I probably, when you're talking in terms of grass, if you guys draw somebody that's fishing grass out there, the number one, or there's two lures that really stand out that I've seen co-anglers catch a bunch of fish on. Number one is a soft plastic stick bait, like his name's Linky or Cinco. Tons of fish get caught on that, either rigging it just weightless or Rocky rig or whatever. And then a 1/2 ounce lipless crankbait. I've seen guys over and over, just pick up a 1/2 ounce lipless crankbait and not put it down, catch a bunch of fish with that. So lipless crankbait, soft plastic stick bait is going to be the prime, movers for that. But the main thing, guys, if I could give you one piece of advice, like I said, you're screwed if you get a live scoper. I just go and complain to the tournament director. In the long run, that's going to help you out. If you get somebody that's really bass fishing, just turn your back to him and fish out the back of the boat. Now, I'm not saying this to try to just say, you're to be seen and not heard. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the angle. Angle is everything in bass fishing. Unless you understand the importance of angle and casting angles in bass fishing, you don't know anything about bass fishing. And the only position that you're going to get the correct angle at when you're in a co-angler position is casting out of the back of the boat. I think I heard Rick Clunn make a comment, or I read he made a comment which said it perfectly. It's like, if you're a co-angler, pretend that the back of the boat is the front of the boat. In other words, you're sitting in the back of the boat, pretend it's the front of the boat, and you're looking out the back of the boat and cast. But take my word for it, guys. I can tell you right now, all the dudes that I've fished with that have won tournaments or done good with me in tournaments, that's how they fish. And I can promise you, the dudes that have fished with me that try to cast up in front of the boat, even if it's 10 foot up in front of the boat, they don't catch jack. They come in with nothing, most 99% of the time. So that's the biggest advice that I can give you there. So anyway, guys, another thing with it, when you go as a co-angler, go into it as a learning experience. Do not go into a tournament as a co-angler, as a competitor trying to compete. You're there to learn. That's what that format's for. And in the long run, big picture, if you let your pro know that you're there to learn, you're not there to fish or compete against him, he will bend over backwards to help you out, give you lures, everything like that. Take advantage of that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to try to compete with your pro to win $150 as a co-angler when you could get just priceless information if you just stay out of his way, fish out of the back of the boat, and let him share knowledge with you. That's really the purpose of the co-angler as a tournament. So anyway, hope it helps out, guys. We'll talk later.